Book of Numbers, chapter 19, the laws for purification. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, These are the statutes of the laws that the Lord has commanded. Tell the people of Israel to bring you a red heifer without defect. And then they keep going down into the laws of how to purify. Keep in mind what we talked about yesterday. And it hit me hard because I hadn't really thought about it in this aspect before. But when I was talking on the podcast, it kind of hit my heart, and it made me realize that the Ark of the Covenant was the Ark of God's promise, the promise between that God had given us and what he was going to do for us. But why is that a big deal? Because what I saw is him setting up a special arrangements around it, almost a special little army, the Levites and the priests, to kind of protect it. But I started thinking about it a little bit deeper. What are they protecting? Ark of the Covenant, but what is the Ark of the Covenant? It's a promise that God gave to us. So what are they really protecting? They're protecting the promise that God gave to us. Wow. So when we start talking about more of these laws of purification, these commandments, these divine rules, see, I think part of the problem is how we think of things when people say laws. But what about the law of love? What about the law of love? Think about that one. What about the law of love? Because that's what these were written out of. So when we think of law, that's a disciplinary action that we have to take for doing something wrong. But what about the laws of love? Is that the same thing? Good question. I don't know. Still trying to figure it out. The death of Miriam. And the people of Israel, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. I mean, kind of short. I don't really know what it's doing in the middle of the book. If I'm correct, I believe Miriam was a Cushite woman who just got leprosy, but I could be wrong on that. Just so you guys know, quick disclaimer, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher, haven't gone to seminary school. These are just my notes on what I read daily, things that God put on my heart, and also things that I'm trying to figure out as I'm reading. The waters of Meribah, some of these names are so hard, you guys. So, once again, haven't gone to seminary school. Me trying to translate these on my own. Don't forget that. Now there's no water for the congregation. This part made me think a little bit. Let me actually touch on a point real quick. Yesterday I went to church, which was definitely a blessing. Love going to church. And I wasn't always like that, just a quick disclaimer. I do now. But I went to church, and one of the things they're talking about is cooking. Sometimes you have to be patient with cooking. If not, sometimes the outside looks done, but the inside still's cooking. And it's also sometimes the preparation of what we need, for the dreams that God has given us, or what God wants us to be as a people, right? So, as Pastor was preaching the word yesterday, it kind of hit me, and he was going over how Joseph saw the baker and the cupbearer, from the time that he had told the meaning of the dreams to them to when the cupbearer remembered Joseph was about 2 years. The whole time from when Joseph had the original dream till the time that the dream finally came true, that the vision that God had planted on him had came true, was about 20 some years. But what Pastor had mentioned yesterday is, think about it. All right, you're in the wilderness, not the wilderness. God gives you a dream. You go tell your brothers, your dad, everybody about it. And that's pretty much what ended you up in this situation. You got thrown in a pit, sold for slavery. You pretty much went to sleep with your master's wife, thrown into jail, being falsely accused. So a dream that you originally had is the thing that put you in this position. Now 2 people come to you and say they have a problem with the dream. Last thing I'd want to do is say, hey, I could help you with that. Because once I already tried to do something with my dream, look at where it ended and the situation it put me in. So I don't even want to touch anybody else's dreams, right? But what Joseph does is go ahead and confirm their dreams. And what happened is what he said, isn't it up to God to translate the dream or whatever? But what happened was the trust in God. And what he did is God helped him translate these dreams. And what it actually did is confirm that his dream was even more true. Now, 2 years later, Pharaoh has a dream. And that's what actually got Joseph out of prison and to pretty much be the right-hand man of Pharaoh. And not only the ruler of Egypt, but pretty much the whole nation. Then his brothers come up. And there they are, bowing at him just like he saw in the dream. I'm not going to go too much more into that, but just kind of wanted, it hit me a lot yesterday that sometimes what God gives us and what we're doing is sometimes it takes time and maybe not as quick as what we want. And that's where it kind of gets into the waters and the things that we're talking about right now, because what it leads into is the people not having water. And imagine being in the middle of the desert, not having water, not only for you, but your livestock and your family. Lord goes to Moses and tells him to tap on the rock or whatever. And then it goes into the next part, which Moses strikes the rock. So God said he's going to do something and do it. And here Moses is getting fed up with the people, getting fed up. And he does what he wants to do, and he starts striking the rock twice. And unfortunately, what that did is cause condensation on him, which pretty much this part in the book right here, it starts boiling it down to the whole point of now Moses won't be able to enter the promised land. After all Moses has done, he brought us out of Egypt. Brought us through the wilderness. He got manna. A cloud comes from the day. Fire at night that follows us around. This Moses gets impatient with God, doesn't trust what God had already told him, and starts just striking the rock. Edom refuses passage. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus say your brothers Israel, you know all the hardships that we have met. All the hardships that we have met. Everything we've been through. You know who we are? How our fathers went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time. Keep in mind how they made it to Egypt in the first place. Mainly Joseph. We lived in Egypt a long time, so now they're asking for passage. And they get denied. And they say, look, we won't touch any of your stuff. We won't do anything, and if we eat anything, drink anything, we will pay you for it. Nope. Nope. You shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with a large army and with a strong force. Don't forget, God had just aligned them to go through all this without any enemies, without any problems, without anything. The promised land. Now they're trying to do it on their own. the death of Aaron. Ooh, the death of Aaron. And they journeyed from Kadesh. And the people of Israel, the whole congregation, came to Mount Or. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at the mount on the border of the land of Edom, let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the people of Israel. What's wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Arad destroyed. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in Najib, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Ephraim, he fought against Israel. They took some of them captive. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed give these people into my hand, then I will devote their cities to destruction. And the Lord heeded their voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites. Still love. Still love. But do you see the pattern? When we do it by ourselves, we get in situations. When we give it to God, He gives us ways. He gives us the way. The Bronze Serpent from Mount Or. They set out by the way to the Red Sea, to around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way. They became impatient again. That's what we do. We become impatient. It's not God's timing. It has to be our timing. It has to be our timing. It goes back to Joseph being faithful, trusting in God. Made me a slave. Sold me, threw me in a pit, throw me in jail. It's easy for me to say. It's easy for me to say right now. But that's the faith we need to have. Joseph did not complain. Did not complain to God. He endured it. Think about it. The cupbearer and the baker, they were new. He's been there a long time. Why would you even want to help them? Why would you even care? Not Joseph. Not Joseph. The Song of the Well. And the people of Israel set out and camped in Oboth. And they set out from Oboth and they camped at Abraham or something like that, in the wilderness that is opposite of Moab, towards the sunrise. And I think sometimes we start thinking about and contemplating the things that we've done and that we do and how we act. Sometimes we have that strong faith to where we just want to sing out shouts of joy and be strong in our faith. And then there's times where we're not. We're weak. We struggle. We struggle. King of Shion defeated. Then Israel sent out messages to Shion, king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside and to fill their vineyard. We will not drink the water of well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through the territory. But they would not allow. They would not allow. God was going to pave the way for you guys right before. Now you want to do it your time after God said He's not going to do it? Now you're not going to go in the promised land and you think you're just going to be able to walk in the promised land and take your enemies? Your enemy has a strong hold on you. The enemy has a stronghold on you until you do give it to God. The moment you give it to God is the moment that you're set free. So why would you ever want to get out of God's presence? Why would you ever want to get out of God's presence? From the moment when you get in God's presence, you're set free of everything. You don't have to worry about anything. You just give it to God and let Him deal with it. He will fight your wars for you. It's the whole thing I see in this book is love. Not only love is if you put trust in that love, He's going to take you through it.